good morning, everybody. Thank you for inviting the county. That's a lot of science to take in, so we'll switch gears here for a little while. Let's see how this works. I love learning technology on the fly. Anyway, my position with the county is Deputy County Executive, and I've been charged with basically taking over where Peter Scully left off. And I'm very thankful that he had such a good team working with him for the years he was with the county, so that team is still intact and they're helping me learn as I go. So thank you for that, Peter. And the story really started back in probably mid-20th century, but by 1962, when the county had its first county executive, H. Lee Dennison, he instructed that a report be done as soon as possible because the amount of development being done in Suffolk County was starting to become problematic. So his recognition wound up in a report in 1962 pointing out that wastewater was going to be a problem connected directly to the amount of population and density that we had in the county. In addition to this particular quote, there was data included in this report that indicated that between 1990 and the year 2000, the county might have as many as 2 million people living in it. So you might ask yourself, was that a good target estimate or not? But in the interim, we had 31 years later, in 1993, we had this very fortunate event. And I would be remiss not to acknowledge the gentleman in the front row, now legislator Engelbright, who was assemblyman at the time, very instrumental in helping get this piece of legislation passed to start protecting groundwater in a real way. So thank you for that and all the predecessors that also helped work on it. So, but another 31 years passes and we still have this problem. And we all recognize it. We recognize it in, the way it affects our springs and summers, interferes with tourism, going to the beach with your family, et cetera. So it seems to be every 31 years we figure out how to do something, but we can't withstand another 31 summers of algal blooms and the devastation that wreaks on our lives and affects the safety of our drinking water, surface water, and groundwaters. So the county's been very, very busy over the last 10 years under the direction of Peter Scully and the team that he had. This slide, it may be difficult to see all the detail, but it basically is, send you back. It's basically showing that three components basically come together over the last 10 years with the help of the technical people, including folks in, our law departments, budget and finance, our elected officials. But what it demonstrates is that the advancements in IA systems and, the upgrades we're making to our plans for sewers often requires that we change Suffolk County codes so that drives the conversation and keeps people in line with what the science is telling us. And it's really driven by the studies and the work done by organizations like this. So thank you very much to the Center for Clean Water Technology. This is really advancing us very, very quickly to where we need to be. But the studies and the ability for us to hit these benchmarks and stay within these code provisions and advancements requires periodic infusion of a lot of money. And that's where government comes into the picture here today. So throughout this 10 years, we've been fortunate to have federal funds come in, state funds being dedicated to a lot of these programs, these pilot programs that you've heard so much about this morning. And that's all well and good, but in order for us to reach the step that we really need to get to, we need to have an ongoing funding system. And that's why the county at this point in time is pressing so hard to get the legislature of Suffolk County to pass what will be, what was approved at the state level. And thank you, Assemblyman Thiel, for all your hard work, and to Senator Martinez for help getting that across the line, and the governor for signing off on the Suffolk County Restoration Water Protection Act. So with that, I'm very thankful that the county is involved so heavily with the center because it advances the data that we're going to need to continue. It's been mentioned before, this is not only a sub-watershed wastewater plan, this is a pinnacle in the studies that have been done that have driven a lot of the changes to the law. Without this kind of work, we wouldn't get the laws in place that are going to help us go forward. So Dr. Goldberg, thank you. Your quote is often referred to. It was a very thoughtful observation then, and I'm sure it will continue in the future. There's only one way to stop the damage and reverse the harm, and that is by following really good science. So where's the county been for the last 10 years or so? Obviously, we have the 3 approved general use IA systems, which you're probably familiar with. And as speakers before me have indicated and demonstrated to you, there are others that are considered provisional, others that are still being studied. And we're really glad that that work goes on. So it was very good to see some of the work that's been shown here today, from the Centers Septic Surge. Looks like promising technology. Here we can see that the numbers we're getting the numbers down. We don't want them where the cesspool and the septic system levels are with the 65 mg per L. We really need to get this down way below the 19 that the county's currently using as a benchmark. We do have, at the end there, you'll see the AE Tech, Nuclear Solution, is the first chemical-based treatment in Suffolk County. It's gravity filtered media, and I know that the media is the zeolite, which this center has been studying as well. It's been in for 3 years, and I'm told from the folks in Suffolk County Department of Health that it's performing very, very well. So what does funding really mean for IA systems? Fortunately, over the years, we've had a county program, our septic program, together with the New York State program, and together both programs have hauled in about $100 million of grant funding that we've been able to get out to individual homeowners. In 2024 alone, we have an enormous effort at the Department of Health to really streamline the contracting process. This has been a bit of a bug in the system because it was requiring 40 signatures between homeowners, their representatives, the folks who are going to sign off and do the installation for them. So we finally switched over to an e-signature process, and that's supposed to be up and running in July. We've also hired some new staff in the Department of Health that's going to be help processing these things. You'll see that the processes of installations and applications has fluctuated through the years, but we're hoping that beginning in the July to August season, we're going to start ramping up at a significant rate, and hopefully we'll get to 1,500 to 2,000 applications a year because we have a lot of cesspools and septics to replace. The grant system, we keep pressing for more money. The Suffolk County system, folks can get between $10,000 and $20,000 per grant. The New York State system is up to $10,000 per grant. We have very dedicated people in the Department of Health that you can call. There's an information website with an email address to get information from folks on how to fill out the application. And so we continue to put a lot of effort into the IA systems since we can't put sewers everywhere in Suffolk County. So when we came into office in January, I was tasked with figuring out how to get the legislation back on track as fast as possible. So together with the great assistance of our assembly leaders, Senate leaders, and the legislators in the county, we got everybody into a room together, figured out where the problem was, reached the compromises that we need to, and in 28 days, we were able to turn around and get a home rule back up to Albany, which signals this is very, very important to us, and we need the state to pass legislation in order for us to go back to Suffolk County residents and ask them, unfortunately, to tax themselves. But in Suffolk County, clean water is job one for most people who live here and understand it. And over the 6 or 7 times that we've gone to the legislature as well as the public and asked them to vote to tax themselves, they've done it 6 out of 7 times at least, and to the tune of in excess of 60%. We're not thinking that there's going to be a problem with this. You may have some recalcitrants out there, but the legislation that hopefully will be on the ballot in November is to raise 1/8 of a cent. That's 12.5 cents on a $100 purchase. And while people don't like to raise taxes, the benefit of doing this will be enormous. It's anticipated that over the life of the program, it'll raise in excess of $4 billion. Half of that will go to sewers, half of it will go to septic systems. And what's important to know about that, it sounds like a lot of money, but it's going to cost a lot more to get this accomplished and fix what is essentially a colonial era problem. So this money will be seed money that will also enable us to go to the feds and go to the state and say Suffolk County is really serious about cleaning its water and its people are willing to raise money to do it. So coming up, actually next week, we have a committee hearing. The Budget and Finance Committee on Tuesday in Riverhead at 9:30 in the morning is going to hear comments about the introductory resolution 1461, and that is the legislation that will bring the 1/8 penny into the Suffolk County Code if it's adopted. It will also make changes to what you commonly known as the quarter penny program, which also is money that's raised through taxes that saves our open space, drinking water protection, and property taxes as well. And then there'll be a final vote on this by the legislature. We'll give a thumbs up or a thumbs down on June 25th. And if the legislature approves it, which I certainly hope that they will do, that will give a green light for this, for a ballot question to be placed in the general election ballot on November 5th. Together with that, there's also going to be an introductory resolution 1460. That's the county wastewater management district that we're hoping to create. The problem has been that the county has about 27 separate county sewer districts, and they tend to have been run on their own in little silos, and the costs to folks who receive that services has varied drastically between districts. So while some may pay, maybe a couple of $100s a year, there are other districts where folks are paying in excess of $1,000. The disparity led the county to say, we can't have that, especially if we're asking everybody to participate in fixing this problem. So if we do a county district instead, everyone's going to be paying for the same thing on residential use. On commercial, folks will be paying for their use. So everything seems more equitable that way. Okay. This is just a picture somebody came up with and said, look, how do you really want to get across the idea of raising 1/8 of a penny? And somebody said, well, isn't that like the change you find in your couch or the change you find in your cup holder in your car? We're hoping people will feel the same way about it. So it's not an increase in property tax. It's not a new fee. Everybody who buys something in Suffolk County is going to wind up paying, whether it's folks who live here, tourists who come here, et cetera. It'll help us leverage our fair share from the federal government and the state governments when they have big pools of money that we hear about. There'll be accountability for it, and what that means is smartly a lockbox language was put into the state legislation, which will carry over into the county's legislation, and that means this money can only be used for clean water purposes. It can't be used if something happens and someone else or a legislature decides, oh, we need more operating funds, we're a little low on cash. They're not going to be able to tap this account. That's been a problem in Suffolk County in the past, and this legislation was rewritten to correct for that problem. And as I said before, it's the intention over the life of the program is to raise over $4 billion for the infrastructure that we're going to need. It will be nice to take as many as we can, but certainly we're shooting for at least 300,000 parcels to be taken off of cesspools and septics. And why do we do this? At the end of the day, government's #1 job is public health and safety. And there's nothing more important than having clean drinking water, for our homes, for our children, for the generations that come after us, for businesses to thrive here, for tourism. It's just too important to let it go. So with that, that's why the county has been so involved and is so thankful that folks have come forward at Stony Brook and put a lot of effort and time into creating the center. It's a great collaboration. I don't use that term lightly. We speak on a regular basis. We attend as many events like this for each other and around the county and into Nassau County because it's that important. And Ed Romaine, as the new county executive, wanted everybody to know he's been at it for 45 years, and one of his most important jobs, he says, is making sure that we have clean water in Suffolk County. So thank you very much for having us, and if you have questions, I'll answer them on the panel. Thank you.